All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to be diving into something pretty interesting, and maybe a little bit controversial. We're going to be looking at how to get what you want in relationships with women.
Yeah, definitely a hot topic for sure.
Yeah, and so the material that we're looking at today comes from a YouTube video. It's called "How to Get What You Want from Women 99% of the Time,"
Hmm.
and this video is by someone named Jessica Osis, and this is, I think this is going to be an interesting one because, she presents a pretty unique system in terms of how women respond to men.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our listeners might find this interesting because, it goes against a lot of the typical advice that you see out there.
Exactly, yeah. So, as always with these deep dives, our goal isn't necessarily to judge whether these claims are true or false, or to say whether you should or shouldn't, follow this advice, but rather it's to kind of unpack these ideas and see what the logic is behind them. And to see if maybe there's anything that our listeners can learn from them or that they can apply in their own lives.
Yeah, exactly. We're just kind of breaking down the core concepts here.
Yeah. So in this deep dive, we're going to be looking at a few different things. We're going to be looking at the idea of shifting from asking to expecting. We're going to be looking at communicating through emotion instead of logic. And we're going to be looking at making her want to give you what she wants.
All right, well, let's dive into it.
Yeah, let's jump into it. So the first things we're going to look at is this idea of shifting from asking to expecting. And so basically what Jessica is saying here is that a lot of guys, they kind of approach women from this place of asking for permission or approval. So for example, they might ask a woman out on a date by saying something like, "Would you want to go out sometime?" Or "Can I take you out?"
Yeah, and she's saying that this is a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. She's saying that this is a mistake because it kind of puts you in this submissive position. It makes it seem like you're not confident and that you're seeking validation from her. And so instead of asking for permission or approval, she's suggesting that you should approach women from a place of expectation.
So instead of saying, "Would you like to go out sometime?" you might say something like, "I'm going to this new bar on Friday. You should come with me."
Yeah, exactly. Or you might say something like, "I'm free on Thursday. Let's grab a drink."
So it's more of a statement than a question.
Right.
Exactly. And so by doing this, by kind of approaching women from this place of expectation, Jessica says that you're going to project more confidence and you're going to make yourself seem more attractive.
Yeah. Kind of shows that you're not afraid to take the lead.
Exactly.
So it's not just about the words that you're using, but it's also about the mindset that you're coming from.
Right. And it's about kind of taking control of the interaction and not letting her dictate the terms.
Right.
Now, one thing that Jessica is very careful to point out here is that this doesn't mean that you should be arrogant or entitled.
Right. It's not about being a jerk.
Yeah, it's not about being a jerk. It's just about being confident and assertive.
Exactly.
And so, for example, if you suggest going out with a woman and she says no, Jessica says that you shouldn't double text her or try to convince her to change her mind.
Right. You just move on.
You just move on. Exactly.
Because if she's really interested, she'll find a way to let you know.
Right. And by not chasing after her, you're actually making yourself seem more attractive because you're showing that you're not desperate.
Exactly.
You have other options.
Exactly. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is communicating through emotion instead of logic.
Okay.
And so basically what Jessica's saying here is that a lot of guys, they try to attract women by appealing to their logical mind. So for example, they might try to impress a woman by talking about their job or their accomplishments or their shared interests.
Yeah, like they're trying to build a resume.
Right, exactly. And Jessica says that this is a mistake because women are not attracted to logic. Women are attracted to emotion.
So instead of trying to impress her with your logic, you should be trying to connect with her on an emotional level.
Right. And so one way to do this is to use what Jessica calls playful challenging. And basically what this means is that you should playfully disagree with her or tease her in a lighthearted way.
So for example, instead of saying, "You look nice today," you might say, "Did you actually try this morning?" with a smile.
Right, exactly. And by doing this, you're creating a little bit of tension and you're making the interaction more playful and engaging.
Yeah, it's more interesting than just agreeing with everything she says.
Exactly. And another way to communicate through emotion is to use intriguing statements instead of boring questions.
So instead of asking, "What do you do for a living?" you might say, I have a feeling you're secretly a rock star.
Right. Or instead of asking, where did you grow up?
Uh,
You might say, you strike me as someone who's traveled the world.
yeah, and these kinds of statements are more likely to spark a conversation than a simple question.
Exactly. And they're also more likely to evoke an emotional response.
Right.
And the last thing that Jessica talks about in this section is the importance of creating mystery. Um, and so basically what she's saying here is that you shouldn't overshare too much information about yourself too early on.
Yeah, keep some things to yourself.
Yeah, keep some things to yourself. Let her wonder a little bit.
Right, because if you give away everything up front, there's nothing left to discover.
Exactly. And so by creating mystery,
Mm-hmm.
you're keeping her intrigued and you're making yourself seem more interesting.
Right.
Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is uh, making her want to give you what you want.
Okay.
And so this is a really interesting concept. Uh, Basically, what Jessica is saying here is that you shouldn't try to force a woman to do anything.
Right, it's not about manipulation.
It's not about manipulation. It's about inspiring her.
Exactly.
And so one way to do this is to use what she calls the reward system. And basically what this means is that you should only reward behavior that you want to see more of. So for example, if a woman is texting you back consistently and she's putting in effort, then you should reward her with your time and attention.
Right, you give her what she wants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if she's not texting you back consistently or she's not putting in effort, then you should pull back.
You don't chase after her.
You don't chase after her. You don't give her the satisfaction of knowing that you're still interested.
Right.
And by doing this,
Yeah.
you're essentially training her to behave the way that you want her to behave.
Yeah, because she'll learn that if she wants your attention, she has to earn it.
Exactly. And another way to make her want to give you what you want is to use the power of implied scarcity. And basically what this means is that you should make your time and attention seem valuable.
So you're not always available.
Right. You're not always available. You're not always texting back right away. You have other things going on in your life.
Right.
And by doing this, you're making yourself seem more desirable.
Because she'll feel like she has to work for your attention.
Exactly. And the last technique that Jessica talks about in this section is called the make it about her technique. And so basically what this means is that you should frame your requests in a way that makes her want to do them.
So instead of saying, cook for me sometime, you might say, hey, you seem like you know how to cook up a storm. I need to see this for myself.
Right. Or instead of saying, send me a picture, you might say, I bet you're looking stunning right now, aren't you?
Yeah, and this is a more subtle way of getting what you want.
Exactly. And it's also more likely to get a positive response.
Right. Because she'll feel like she's doing something for herself, not for you.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about shifting from asking to expecting, communicating through emotion, and making her want to give you what you want.
Right.
Now, what about the number one mistake that guys make?
Yeah, so the number one mistake that Jessica says that guys make is negotiating for her attention. And basically what this means is that they try to convince a woman to like them.
Yeah, like they're trying to win her over.
Exactly. And so, for example, they might send her a bunch of texts when she's not responding, or they might try to remind her of all the reasons why she should be with them.
Or they might even settle for being friends with her in the hopes that she'll eventually develop feelings for them.
Right. And Jessica says that this is a huge mistake because it shows that you're not confident
Yeah.
and that you don't value yourself.
Yeah, it makes you look desperate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so instead of negotiating for her attention, Jessica says that you should simply walk away.
You don't give her the satisfaction of knowing that you're still interested.
Exactly. And by doing this, you're actually making yourself seem more attractive.
Because you're showing that you're not afraid to lose her.
Right. You're showing that you have self-respect.
Exactly. And that's something that women find very attractive.
Exactly. So to summarize, Jessica Oss's advice for getting what you want from women is to shift from asking to expecting, to communicate through emotion instead of logic, to make her want to give you what you want, and to never negotiate for her attention.
Right. And while this advice may seem controversial to some people, I think there's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth considering.
Yeah. And, you know, even if you don't agree with everything she says, I think there's still a lot of valuable insights that you can glean from her videos.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is to just be yourself and be confident.
Yeah, because confidence is always attractive.
Exactly. So that wraps up our deep dive into Jessica O's advice for getting what you want from women.
I hope you found this deep dive helpful.
Yeah, I hope you found it interesting. And, you know, whether you agree with her advice or not, I think it's important to just be aware of these different perspectives.
Exactly.
And to think about how you can apply them to your own life.
You're right.
And who knows, maybe you'll even find yourself getting what you want 99% of the time.
Maybe so.
All right, thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.